we start, I want to take a moment to thank our Wow Week sponsor, which is MedJet. MedJet is a global medical transport and crisis response membership. I've had a membership since my kids were babies. You'll find more information about it, MedJet, and in the link in our Q&A box. But there's also an exclusive Wow Week discount that MedJet is offering you. It's this week only. It lasts until Monday at 5 p.m. EST. So go to the Q&A box, check out the link. And so now, before we get the answers to your travel insurance and emergency assistance questions and learn how to protect ourselves from risk, I want to introduce you to our executive editor at WendyPerrin.com, Brooke Wilkinson. Brooke?
Hey everyone. Welcome all of you. I see a lot of names among our attendees who have been joining us throughout the week and who I recognize from emailing with you, answering your travel questions. That's one of the many ways that we try to help travelers every day. So WendyPerrin.com, if you're new to us, we are a website dedicated to making travel better. We vet travel planners using feedback from travelers who have actually worked with them to name the very best of those planners to our WOW list of trusted travel experts. And when you plan a trip via our site, we guide you through our WOW approach to travel planning, designed to avoid common pitfalls and get you the best trip possible. And as I said, we offer personalized trip recommendations through our Ask Wendy questionnaire, which you can also find on our website if you look at the black nav bar at the top. If you're joining us today, there's one other part of our website that I want to make sure you're aware of, which is the travel insurance section of our site. You'll find it if you hover over travel intel in that black nav bar. You'll see travel insurance on the drop down menu. Click there and you'll find a bunch of different articles full of information about different aspects of travel insurance, which I think you'll all want to read. Today, make sure to open up your Q&A box and feel free to drop in questions there that you have for our guests today. We got many questions ahead of time, so we'll be asking those, but we'll try to answer as many as we can. And if we don't get to your question today, again, we're at questions@WendyPerrin.com, and we'll try to get an answer to any question you have. Back to you, Wendy.
Great. Thank you, Brooke. I should have let you all know that Brooke is coming to us from California. Many of you already know Brooke because she helps answer your many travel questions when you write to questions@WendyPerrin.com. Brooke and I worked together for many years as editors at Condé Nast Traveler magazine, and she's traveled to more than 50 countries. She's also our resident clever travel insurance expert. So she's going to be moderating a lot of this today. And now let me introduce you to our expert guests today, two of the most knowledgeable people we know, to help guide you through the decisions that will give you peace of mind before your next trip and during your next trip. So with us today, we have the best travel insurance guru we know, Stan Sandberg. Stan is the founder of travelinsurance.com. We've turned many travelers onto this website and they love how it works. You input your trip dates, your trip cost, your age, and other variables, and the site generates side-by-side comparisons of the insurance policies that best fit your needs. And also joining us today is the wonderful Sherry Howell of MedJet, which is the Medical Evacuation and Security Response Crisis Response Membership Program that I told you about a little bit ago, and that I've been a member of for decades. So Stan and Sherry, thank you so much for being here with us today. And Brooke, why don't you start with our questions?
Great, take it away. Yeah, so I want both of you to just give us a quick, 30-second explainer of what these products do. Maybe Stan, can you start with travel insurance?
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, thank you, Brooke, and thank you, Wendy, for having me again. I think this might be the fourth or fifth year we've been doing this, and with Sherry. So hello, Sherry. Nice to see you. And that was a very nice introduction, Wendy. So travel insurance is simply a product which is going to protect your trip costs in the event you have to cancel a trip for a variety of reasons. And we can go through those specific reasons in the course of the discussion. And then it also gives you a number of benefits which can help you while you're traveling, primarily emergency medical expense coverage. You find yourself sick and having to seek medical, go to the hospital or a clinic. It would reimburse you for medical costs, and then medical emergency evacuation in the event of a serious emergency that would require you to get back. What you're going to learn in about 30 seconds is that it's a little different from what MedJet Assist does. And they're very complementary. And like Wendy, I've been a MedJet Assist member for many years.
Great.
We'll get into the nitty gritty. Thanks.
Thanks, Dan. And so, Sherry, with travel insurance is doing all that, what is MedJet doing on top of that?
Which, I mean, I have used travelinsurance.com for multiple policies as well. So I was like saying Stan on this. So the medical evacuation benefits in travel insurance, the small print is it's to the nearest adequate facility to stabilize you. What MedJet does is pick up where they leave off. We'll get you moved to your hospital at home just because you prefer to be treated at your hospital at home. There's none of the medical necessity language. There's none of the, adequate facility language. And those are the two very important differences between, they're both, like the medevac and the travel insurance, absolutely necessary. We just get people moved to a hospital at home because they prefer to be moved to a hospital at home. And then the crisis response, our MedJet Horizon membership adds 24/7 security and crisis response, which is security experts to call anytime you feel that your safety is threatened, and it includes security evacuation if that is required. So, these are terrible. I always hate talking about it, but if you just disappeared on a trip, if you sent a kid abroad and they just disappeared, if you're the victim of a violent crime, kidnapping for ransom, political threat, that seems to be the most amount of calls lately is just riots and political tension and when things erupt. And that's what we do.
Great. Thank you, Sherry.
Mhm.
Now, I have a couple questions for both of you to answer. One, what's the biggest thing that people get wrong about, okay, Stan, we'll start with you, about travel insurance?
Sure. I think the biggest misconception is still, when can I buy travel insurance? I think some people feel like they've missed the window if they don't buy it, or becomes a second thought when they get closer to the trip. But the reality is, you can buy travel insurance really up until just before your trip departure date. So once you're on your trip, you can't buy it anymore for that particular trip, but really anytime up before then. But buying travel insurance just before you're about to leave on a trip, it's it's one of those things. If you're looking just for the post-departure benefits, meaning the emergency medical coverage, maybe baggage loss or trip delay coverage, then it's not you can buy it really right up till your trip date. However, if you're concerned about something occurring or something happening that might cause you to have to cancel your trip altogether, and where you would be out of a lot of money of non-refundable prepaid trip costs, you want to buy your insurance really as really at the point where you're making the first purchase towards the trip, or where you've made that first booking or the first deposit. And then, there's another reason why it's very important to purchase the travel insurance early. If you are looking for a policy with what we call time-sensitive benefits, then it's critical that you buy it early. And I'll give you the two examples that most people are interested in. Policies that offer a pre-existing condition waiver. Typically, you need to purchase a policy within, call it 7 days. Some are 15 days. Some plans are 21 days. But within that time frame from when you made that initial deposit, you must purchase the policy, and there's some other conditions too, or other requirements in order to qualify for that pre-existing condition waiver. And we can drill into that later too. The second benefit that people are really most interested in is what's called a cancel for any reason policy. So this is typically an optional upgrade that is sold with a policy if it offers it. And again, there's this time sensitivity. In order to be able to purchase that upgrade, you must buy your insurance within that strict time window from when you've made the initial payment towards the trip.
Got it. Thanks, Dan. And Sherry, what's the biggest misconception you hear about MedJet?
Oh, the same one that I had before I even found out about MedJet and started working there, which is, I traveled for years and years and years, and I always used a credit card that had evac benefits, and I always took out the travel insurance that had the evac benefits. But again, it's limited to the nearest adequate facility. They're going to want you to stay there until you've been treated to the fullest extent that that hospital somewhere abroad is capable. And then they'll repatriate you back home, typically by common carrier. And so that misunderstanding about, oh, I've got travel insurance with medevac benefits, I don't need MedJet. Well, you do if you want to be able to get moved to a hospital at home just because you want to get home. And so that's like that's I would say our biggest challenge in educating people as to what the product does. But we've been in business for 35 years, so it's a truth.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Sherry mentioned the turbulent times we're in right now. And if travelers want to protect themselves during this period of geopolitical uncertainty, what's the most important step they can take? Stan, we'll start with you.
So, travel insurance actually, the trip cancellation and trip interruption coverage includes a wide range of covered reasons. And some plans actually have cancellation covered reasons for civil unrest and riots. It had some plans have coverage for changes in the U.S. State Department's travel advisory level. So if you've booked a trip to a country and before your trip dates, the country's elevated to, I believe it's level 4 or whatever the highest level is. In some plans, if you have already bought the plan and that you've got that change in travel advisory, it would give you an ability to cancel that, and it would reimburse you for the non-refundable prepaid trip costs. So I think those are two of the considerations. But what I think is also important to remember that is, there's certain destinations which may be already experiencing sort of conflicts of either war or different places which would be deemed by any common sense person to be a riskier destination. And in those cases, if there's conflict or if there's war, travel insurance is not really going to provide coverage for those. Typically, insurance, like almost any insurance product, war would be an excluded reason for coverage. Having said that, again, in travel insurance, you would still have an option. If you're really concerned, you would still have the option to purchase a policy with a cancel for any reason feature, which would give you some measure of protection to cancel before your trip.
Right. One thing to keep in mind is that's not going to be 100% reimbursement as it would be if
Correct.
you can't have to cancel because your doctor says you're no longer well enough. You have a heart condition, you can't travel. Insurance will give you all your money back, but CFAR is 50 to 75%, I think usually.
Yeah, it's typically 50. It's typically 75%, and some plans will be 50%. Obviously, those would be more economical. But as you said, Brooke, it's not the full amount. So it's a bit of an option. Although it's 75%, you do get a fair amount of coverage there. One other thing to consider about CFAR while we're getting into the details, CFAR coverage protects you up until 2 days prior to your departure date. So you would have to invoke that cancellation, before you got within 2 days of your departure. Once you're within the 2 days of departure, you can't use cancel for any reason. However, you still have all the standard cancellation coverages. So if you got sick, death in the family, God forbid, or any of the other wide-ranging reasons, they would still be available within that 2-day period.
Right. Thank you. And Sherry, what's your thought on this time of political uncertainty? What the best step for travelers to take is?
The State Department, we don't go to level 4 countries either. If the government says that you should not go, then you should not go. Like they don't even have services to help you if you go. So Ukraine, Afghanistan, those are off. So always check the State Department. There's a lot of good information on that website as far as, some countries like India is a level 2, but they do have level 4 areas in India, like up by the Pakistan border. So, do your research before you're going to go, and understand what's going on there, and understand, like Stan says, what your coverages are and are not going to help you with if you do decide to go. And it's a known risk. They call that known risk, and um, yeah.
And I would say
Yeah, Sharon, I was just going to say that's a
yeah.
great point. Travel insurance is about protecting the unexpected or
Mhm.
the unknown risk, the one that you don't see coming. Once there is a risk that is known, that's out there, travel insurance will not be helpful in covering those known risks. And I really referring to things like hurricanes. If you've got a named storm,
Yeah.
this bomb cyclone, which I'm in the Northeast, so we're having the reports of a bomb cyclone hitting the Northeast this weekend. So that is already a known event. It would be hard to sort of you couldn't buy insurance, the day before you're set to travel because a storm has, impacted the area. The coverage would be limited and would exclude those known risks.
Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
why it is wise to buy it early. Although the benefit,
Yes.
if all you need, as Stan said, if all you need is the in-trip coverage, it's first of all, it's a lot more affordable to not get that pre-trip coverage, and you can buy it right up until the trip itself. And to
Yes.
add to Sherry's point about the State Department advisories, I would emphasize the granularity that you can find there. Sometimes travelers miss that there is a specific area that has a different level than the rest of the country, and the places that you may be going may be entirely safe, and there's another part of the country that the State Department is advising against. I also often look at other governments' advisories, because if you kind of compare several, you can get a broader sense of the overall feeling about a place. So, go to other English speaking countries are easiest ones to read. So you can go to the UK or Australia and look at their government advisories as well. And we got a lot of questions this year about annual policies. So I'd love to hear from you both. I know both travel insurance and MedJet have kind of pre-trip or per trip options and annual options. So Stan, what's the difference, pros and cons? Those two?
Yeah, so in fact, we are seeing more purchases of annual policies. It's not our primary set of products on travelinsurance.com, but we do have several providers that offer annual policies. And the benefit of an annual policy is that if you are traveling, 3, 4 times a year, and if your trips are, if it's less about the trip cancellation piece, but more about making sure you have sort of these standard coverages over the course of these trips, then it actually could make sense to consider an annual policy just from a sort of cost benefit analysis. It might be more affordable than doing single plan purchases for each trip. It also takes away it's convenient. I mean, you don't have to register each trip. It's just going to give you coverage for that 1 year period. Now, some plans might have a maximum number of trips. With the trip cancellation coverage, it's important to note that that coverage is typically a lower limit level than you can do with a individual plan. So you may only have a cumulative coverage of $5,000 for trip cancellation over the course of the year for all of your trips. So again, if trip cancellation is your sort of driving concern, then it may still benefit you to do the single trip plans, but yeah, so there's a convenience factor and potentially a cost savings to do annual plans.
Got it. And Sherry, how about the per trip versus annual policy memberships that MedJet has?
Yeah, we sell a lot of short terms, but those are generally infrequent travelers. You can get an 8-day short-term MedJet membership for $99. You can get an annual that covers all travel within the course of a year, any single trip lasting up to 90 consecutive days. You go away for 90 days, come home for 1 day, go for 89 days, come home for 1 day, go for 2 weeks, come home for 1 day. Like you could do 360 days of travel that way. Just no single trip, that's only $315. So if you're taking, 2 trips, 3 trips, and it works domestically as well, which people forget. Everybody buys it for the big international trip. And I will say about 50% of our transports every year are actually domestic. They've done the big trip. They've come home, they've gone to a wedding 3 states over, they slip on the dance floor, they land in the hospital, and they discover, or we get a lot of snowboard and ski accidents where they really forgot that it worked that way, and they call and they ask, and they're just so happy to be able to get moved home. Um, so the bulk of our memberships are heavy travelers that are annual members.
Yeah, yeah. We actually did an article this year about the real risks of travel, or not what you think. You'll find it in the travel insurance section on the website that we have these. Some people are up at night thinking about riots or theft or those kinds of scary scary movie risks, and then the more ordinary mundane, like you slip on a river cruise gangplank and break your hip, or
Yeah.
snowboarding, skiing. Yeah,
You
right.
trip
I
and
think slip and falls are like, I
exactly
would say
slip
that,
and fall in the hotel room shower or bath.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Much
yeah.
more likely to end your trip than a
Yeah, or
political riot.
food poisoning that just, continues to go salmonella poisoning that can land you in the hospital and all sorts of organs start
Dehydration,
failing.
it's yeah,
Yeah,
there's so many
bad.
things that can take you, knock you out for a couple of days and you might even wind up in the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the good news is that these are more preventable, more in one's own control, right? Hydrate, don't overeat or overdrink when you just because you're traveling, right? More in our own control than the idea that there
Mhm.
could be a political riot outside your hotel room, which is less likely to happen. Okay, I'm going to dive into the questions that we got ahead of time from some of you who are joining us. And if things show up, Wendy, feel free to jump in with anything you're seeing in the Q&A box. So we got a lot to get to, so we'll just jump in. Stan, I'll start with you. What is the minimum amount of travel insurance you absolutely need, and how much should you purchase even with a MedJet evacuation?
Very good question. It depends. First of all, on the trip cancellation side, you don't have to insure 100% of your non-refundable trip costs. It's not a requirement to do so, unless you are looking for some additional benefits that are tied to that requirement, but it's not a requirement too. So if you have a $10,000 trip and you may only want to insure $5,000 of that trip, it would bring the cost of the policy down, but you would be exposing the other $5,000 to risk.
And I think a lot
So
of people
it
also wonder about how much medical coverage, right? Because you're looking at different policies that
yes,
have different limits of how much they'll cover of your medical
yeah.
bills. Do you have a
And
rule of thumb for that?
Yeah, so I was going to get there on that. I think traveling internationally, the minimum sort of the benchmark would be $50,000 of medical. Many plans can go up to 100,000, 150,000, 200,000. And then, if you're traveling through the EU on a Schengen visa, actually do have a requirement for, I think it's 35,000 euro. I can't do the currency conversion for you in real time, but nevertheless, if you get $50,000 of medical, that tends to cover that for you. And so. Again, it depends on your personal situation. I'd say that even if you're traveling domestically, there's so many plans that are affordable with $50,000 of medical coverage that just sort of makes sense. Again, you can find plans though that offer 15,000 or 25,000 too.
And to the question of how much, if you've got MedJet, does that change how much medical insurance you need? They're really different
No,
buckets that are getting pulled from. The medical insurance bucket is for when you've been evacuated to the nearest hospital, you're getting treated
that's
there.
correct.
The
Right.
insurance is going to
They,
cover those
they,
bills.
yeah, they wouldn't be tied together.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we recommend 50,000 minimum as well. So
Mhm. And Stan, do policies typically prepay a hospital request for admissions?
So the emergency services and the medical expense coverage, uh, again, depending on the situation, they can arrange for payment to the hospitals. If generally speaking, a travel insurance policy is paid on a reimbursement basis. So you would pay the expense and then you would file a claim for reimbursement of that expense. In the case of hospital stays where you're talking about a large expense, you would just coordinate with the travel insurance company and their, emergency service provider.
Yeah, I
it's
know.
also heavily dependent on just the hospital's policy. Like we don't find that there's any one single. We actually added $60,000 medical cash advance onto the MedJet Horizon membership, and it's not insurance. It's just the ability to borrow money from us and us get it to the hospital because in Mexico, in South Africa, we were finding a lot of hospitals demanding cash payment up front, and some of that was like a significant outlay. Now, if you're traveling with your spouse and you both have a car accident and you land in a hospital that is requiring cash payment up front, do your kids know how to get that? Is there somebody that knows how to get that? So that's why we put that benefit on there, is so that we could actually get the money to an international hospital probably a lot easier than somebody who's never had to try to transfer money internationally. And would they even be able to access their parents' account?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean that may be also an overlooked feature of a travel insurance plan, which is the emergency travel assistance services. So typically, a travel insurance carrier, the insurance carrier is going to be working with an assistance company that's going to have experts a phone call away that will be regional experts that can help you navigate the destination, navigate, for instance, the legal sort of if you
Mhm.
got yourself into a legal mess or a medical emergency. You do not want to have to learn how to navigate a country under, duress or in an emergency. And that's why you have that through MedJet Assist as well. And so it's like for me, when I travel with my family, I want to know that I'm a phone call away from having someone who knows what they're doing and can help in a pinch.
And speak the local language too. Often there's a
Yes.
language barrier as well.
Yeah.
Catherine says we're on the cusp of canceling a cruise leaving from Denmark in July due to concerns about political unrest/wars. Help! I'd love to hear both of your thoughts on Catherine's situation.
Uh,
Well, go ahead, Sherry. Do you want to
oh,
start?
I'm a pretty intrepid traveler, so I'd be like, I would keep my cruise. But well, there's Stan.
Yeah, I mean, I think the general rule here is that would be the cancellation coverage that might give you sort of a sense of ease about, being able to pull out the last minute, unfortunately is not going to cover your just whether it's a sort of generic concern or a fear. It just doesn't feel like the right time to go anymore. Those types of things would require the cancel for any reason coverage. Um, and yeah, and so it's one of those things that travel insurance is really good about covering the things that are listed in the plan that they say they're going to cover. They're really good about that. It's when you get outside of those reasons that you're not going to find coverage unless you have to cancel for any reason.
Yeah.
Right.
And what we found, if travelers are feeling uncomfortable about traveling now, if you've booked through a trip planner, it's worth going to them and talking about postponing the trip to another time. If you're willing to keep the booking going and just shift the dates a bit forward, you're more likely to preserve more of your financial investment than if you say, you know what, I want to cancel, I want to get your money back. Honestly, that's unlikely to happen if you're this close in at that point, if you've already paid for the trip. Rosalind asked, what is the best insurance for emergency evacuation to the US? I hope it's been clear from our talk so far that there are few, if any, travel insurance policies that are going to get you all the way back to the US. I suppose if you're at a very extenuating circumstance where the nearest medical facility is indeed in the US, they would. But short of that, if you're on safari in Tanzania, they're going to get you probably to Nairobi, and they will cover that, the expense of however they get you there, ambulance, charter flights. Then you're in Nairobi, and if you want to get home to Toledo, Ohio, that's where MedJet comes in to do that transport.
Yeah, and that's a harsh thing to find out because the last couple of Africa to US transports have been pushing north of $250,000.
Wow.
And that would be cash out of your pocket or you're stuck there because if travel insurance isn't going to deem it medically necessary to move you, that's a hefty bill.
Another traveler wanted to know how to ensure MedJet services are offered in your insurance. So again, that you're not going to get the MedJet return to the United States. There's what's called the emergency evacuation. Is that the portion of a policy, Stan, that will help with that?
Yeah.
To
And as Sherry alluded to, there will be a service provider on the medical assistance side, and there needs to be determination by the service provider as to whether a medical evacuation is necessary. So there's some decision making that has to happen that you may not have control over. It would be between doctors and doctors on the emergency assistance staff, and then the arrangements have to be made through that assistance company. And again, for most plans, the standard is an evacuation to the nearest medical facility that can take care of your situation. And if there's a determination that the medical facility you're already in can adequately handle your medical emergency, then there may not be a emergency evacuation at all.
David says, we extended a trip by a day when our flight was canceled January 3rd. How is trip extension usually covered in a travel insurance policy? Stan, can you speak to that?
Yeah, so if you have a covered trip and your trip is delayed for weather or for flight cancellation, the policy will remain effectively until you get home. So it wouldn't necessarily cover you if you decided you wanted to extend your trip because you're having so much fun and you want to tack on a day or two there. But in either of those scenarios, the best thing to do is to contact the travel insurance company, the actual insurance carrier that issued the plan, and find out and just make sure to notify them that you've experienced a cancellation and a delay and you're trying to return. In fact, they have travel assistance services built into these plans too that might even be able to help you in those scenarios.
And are there limits to the coverage there? Like if you're staying in an overwater bungalow in Tahiti, are they going to cover the full cost of that versus a hotel
Well,
stay at an
so
airport?
yeah, that would fall under the either the trip interruption or trip delay coverage, and there would be limits. Certainly trip delay coverage has a per day maximum, and then an overall limit, and that can range from $250 a day per person up to $1,000 a day per person. So you have a wide range,
Yeah.
and it sort of just depends on the circumstances.
Okay. We've talked about pre-existing conditions a bit, medical conditions on the insurance side of it, and the importance of purchasing a policy early to get those covered. Vicky wants to know, Sherry, about the MedJet side. Do services like MedJet exclude pre-existing conditions in their coverage?
Under age 75, we don't ask any health questions. You can sign up like from your driveway on like as you pull out to go to the airport. There's no window to purchase to get that, pre-existing condition waiver. We don't ask, so we don't know, so there's nothing excluded. Now, age 75 plus, that does go into our diamond membership. And that does require a brief medical questionnaire be filled out, and there might be some concern over some pre-existing, serious pre-existing conditions.
Okay, and that starts to answer another question about options for people over 75 or over 85. So maybe Stan, you can speak to the travel insurance side of that while we're on that topic.
Yeah, so the travel insurance plan is not going to differentiate. They're not going to treat travelers by age any differently. But again, the requirement to qualify for a pre-existing condition waiver is strictly based on purchasing the plan within that time window, which is specified in the plan. And as I said before, it could be 7 days, it could be up to 21 days. Generally, I think 14 days is sort of the right thing to think about. So it must be purchased within that period. Some plans require that you insure, the 100% of your non-refundable trip costs. So some plans, if you buy a plan and insure $1 of trip costs in order to get the pre-existing condition waiver, that's not likely going to work. And then the last requirement is that at the time you purchase the plan, you have to be medically fit or medically able to travel. So again, that's to prevent someone who may have experienced a medical emergency from purchasing a plan in order to get that waiver.
Mm-hmm. We have a couple lucky travelers who are looking at longer range trips, even around the world coverage. So one asked about, it says, most companies offer coverage for up to 45 days. Any advice on finding the best options for trips up to 90 days? And another traveler is looking for coverage for a multi-month around the world trip. Stan,
Wow.
can you make suggestions there?
Yeah, so I think there are two considerations. Most plans are designed, and the pricing is designed for trips under 30 days. Many will tack on some premium or surcharges for each day over 30 days. Some plans will max out at 90 days. Some plans will max out at 180 days, and some plans will max out at 365 or 364 maybe. So I think though for these big sort of whether it's around the world trips or maybe it's 3-month cruises, there are some carriers that and again, if you're looking to insure for trip cancellation purposes, the trip costs, you will want to look for a plan that obviously covers a much higher trip cost. So there's some plans which will allow you to cover up to $150,000 of trip costs per person. Others max out at 25,000 of trip costs or 50,000 of trip costs. And so again, this is a shameless plug here, but the reason why we built travelinsurance.com was that you could then quickly establish which carriers and which plans are available across those, different variables. So, if you have $150,000 of trip cost, you can put that in and you can see which are the providers that actually cover a trip like that.
And similar with the days, if you have a 120-day
Correct.
trip, you can put in the start date and the end date of the trip. You're going to filter out for only the policy.
Correct. We are only going to show you the policies that are available for your particular trip based on the inputs.
Yeah. And Sherry, you mentioned earlier a bit about the length. You have different lengths of trips that
Yeah, our regular annual membership covers up to 90 consecutive days on a single trip, but we do have a lot of snowbird, Canadians or northern American states that houses in Mexico, Costa Rica. So there's an expatriate 180 that allows you to be out of the country for up to 180 consecutive days. And then if you're just going to move someplace for an entire year, we have a expat 365. So you can be out of the country consecutively 365. There's a student membership, student and faculty, if they're enrolled or teaching. It's the same price as a regular annual. It just allows 140 consecutive days.
Mhm. Now we have a question about credit card insurance that comes through a credit card, and I think I spied something in the Q&A box about that too. A lot of people often ask about, they think, well, I'm paying for this premium credit card, I'm getting some sort of insurance through it. Jacob asks, can one rely on the complimentary travel insurance coverage provided when purchasing a flight with a credit card? I'm not as concerned with the minor levels of coverage, more the critical medical, emergency, and evacuation aspects. Or do you recommend a traveler take out a separate travel insurance policy? If so, why? Stan?
Yeah, well, I'm going to say we recommend getting a separate travel insurance policy. The coverage, maybe at the very highest end premium cards, you might find the coverage to be adequate. It's important to check whether that card requires you to purchase all of your trip costs on the card or at least some of the trip costs on the card itself. And then really focus in on what the exclusions are for that coverage. Again, it tends to be a little more generic type of coverage. It's going to typically cap out on the trip costs or the trip cancellation side. It's going to cap out at a certain number which might be lower than what your trip costs are. And then the emergency medical expense will may not be adequate for what you're looking for. And again, also the coverage limits for the other benefits. And then I would say, it's just really, really important to understand what the exclusions are. You're probably not getting a pre-existing condition waiver in any circumstance. And so, that one, if you have a couple of days of time or you have a really good research assistant or, a bored child, have them go out and research what all those coverages are.
Yeah.
I've done it a lot, and I can tell you I have not been able to establish like a consistent answer for any of them.
Yeah.
Robin says, I have MedJet, would love a detailed explanation on how it actually works if one had to activate it during a trip. Sherry, what are kind of the first couple steps? Let's not get too detailed, but
Yeah, exactly. If you're hospitalized and require continued hospitalization, you call us and we start working on getting you moved home. Now, we do need a medical report to make sure that you're stable to put up at altitude. There needs to be pre-admission on the receiving end. We don't just pull you out of one and dump you off at the ER someplace. So yeah, there is a process. That process is handled, by our transport team. It's turnkey, and if everything is once everything is lined up, then a team will show up at your bedside. They'll gather the medical report from your current attending physician. We pay for the ambulance to get to the plane. We pay for the plane and all the crew and anything that is needed in that. You're met at the airfield with another ambulance, and they don't leave your side until you have been fully admitted and they've handed off all the medical reports and anything that happened during the flight. So it's very turnkey. But the primary requirement is hospital to hospital transport. So if you go in, break your wrist, your vacation's over, we're not gonna do that. But if you land in the hospital and you truly are stuck there, then we work on getting people home.
Right.
Just can I interrupt for a second? Because there's a
Yeah.
question from Joanne. Does MedJet provide coverage for accommodations for the spouse of a hospitalized traveler? So, okay, the traveler's in the hospital. What about the spouse?
Well, by accommodation, it would be travel insurance that paid for, the trip interruption, the spouses. But for us, typically, if she's asking about can the spouse ride along, typically, yes. They are small planes. They are weight dependent. If we have a very large patient, occasionally the weight has been met and the spouse cannot go. But I mean, that'd be I think it's 400-pound plus person that would alienate the spouse from hopping on board. I'd have to go back and look at the rules and regulations, but typically, yeah, a spouse, a little bit of luggage, wouldn't be the first time a dog popped on the plane.
Wendy, I would say the travel insurance coverage
Yeah.
would many plans would provide for bedside companion and coverage. In some cases, it would provide for flying the kids home
Mhm.
or bringing in a companion if needed. And so and there would be additional coverage there.
Cheryl wants to know how to obtain insurance for European car rentals without going broke. Stan, do you have advice about particularly covering yourself for car rental issues?
Yeah, so in most travel insurance plans, there will be an optional upgrade for car rental coverage. Now, this is typically just collision or damage coverage. It's not going to be the full sort of suite of insurance coverages that well a country might require. And then it's also important. There's some odd exclusions. Like some plans won't cover car rental coverage in Ireland or Jamaica or some other countries. And again, it's important to double check that one. But for coverage, for at least some optional coverage, you can get $35,000 of car rental damage, up to $50,000 in some plans. But again, it's critical to find out where your gaps might be. For some travelers, you may even have some extension of your home car insurance, and so that's also worth looking into.
Mhm. And I found in my own travels that sometimes the insurance offered by the rental agency, while it may be more expensive, it is coverage that is tuned to the location and the likely reasons for a claim more so than a general travel insurance policy might be.
Right. And again, you want to be sure that well if you're buying the insurance locally, you're likely not going to have to deal with any payments for claims versus on a travel insurance policy, you may have some you may have to pay for it and then do the reimbursement. And so that adds a layer of complexity, which you may want to avoid.
Let's see. I'm going to jump into the Q&A box. Wendy, feel free to, if there's ones that you are dying to ask.
Well, I think this is I would love to know the answer to this exactly. So Elizabeth asks, I have travel insurance for an upcoming trip with a waiver of pre-existing conditions and CFAR coverage. The policy requires that I, quote, insure the total trip cost. What does that mean in plain English? Do I need to include in the amount insured refundable airfare or tour deposits that are refundable?
So my first answer is going to be because this is one you don't want to be tripped up on. is to contact the name of the carrier on your policy. So I'm going to give you generic, but I would like you to check with the issuer that you currently have and you're holding. The general requirement is that it's the non-refundable prepaid trip costs or costs subject to fees or penalties if you were to cancel. So it might be refundable, but if you're paying a $25, cancellation fee, that might be considered as, that you may need to include those costs in order to meet that requirement. And so it's really important. If a deposit is refundable only up to a certain point. So let's say that deposit, within 10 days or 30 days is no longer refundable, then you should include that as well, because that would be considered ultimately a non-refundable trip cost. Again, super important to check with your individual issuer to just make sure, because you don't want to get tripped up on that. The other requirement, which I think is worth explaining for a minute, is when you've made a series of payments towards a trip. Many people are not paying 100% of their trip up front. They're going to pay it over a series of payments. You can actually stage those payments for the travel insurance too, as long as it's within that strict time window, which is defined in the plan, meaning that you've made your initial payment, you've bought the travel insurance for that. 3 months later, you've made your second payment, then you call up the insurance carrier and you add those additional trip costs to the policy. Now you've met the requirement. When you've made the next payment, you do the same. So you just need to be able to do that as you go along. There's some people who will purchase the insurance for the full amount of the trip up front. What ultimately happens there is you're overinsured until that point in time when you've actually made all of your non-refundable payments. You can do it, but if you have only made, call it 50% of your payments, and then you have to cancel, your coverage wouldn't be for the 100% of the trip cost you insured. It would just be for the 50%, and it would just for the amounts that you've actually paid. That may have been really complicated.
It's complicated, yeah.
Well, I think it comes back to check with the carrier, because you don't want to get it wrong. I think that's the most important part. Yeah. Edward has a question about MedJet. He says he's been MedJet members for many years. I always purchase additional medical insurance, but wonder if I purchase too much medical insurance, since MedJet would fly me home before the medical expenses get out of hand. Would say, so you have to be hospitalized. You have to have been admitted to the hospital before MedJet is going to get involved. And that can get expensive quite quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, Sherry?
It can. I mean, I work at MedJet. They would come and get me, but I have an annual travel insurance policy primarily for the medical expenses of being hospitalized. And if are required to be hospitalized there until you're stable enough for us to put you up at altitude for a long period of time, it can run up a bill, which is again why we recommend a minimum of $50,000 in emergency medical. Uh, I, I very seldom, insure a lot of my travel costs because again, all refundable. But I primarily do it for the medical, and so really firmly believe that everybody should have that.
Right.
I agree too. And one other sort of fine point there. It's really important that you know what your home health insurance will cover when you're traveling. For retirees who are on Medicare, unless you have sort of specifically addressed it, you may not have your health insurance covering you when you leave the country. So it's that one is a very important factor. And again, travel insurance becomes a way to get that coverage in place while you're traveling.
Yeah, very few cover anything out overseas.
Yeah, that's Edward was also asking, can you suggest any annual policies that have a larger medical coverage amount than $50,000?
Well, there are actually specialized international travel medical plans that that don't include the trip cancellation piece. There are companies like IMG, Braywick, Seven Corners, World Trips. Those are four that also offer just international travel medical plans. Some of them offer them in annual versions, and in those cases, you can actually you can really customize the coverage. You can customize the deductible in those plans from 0 to, $1,000 deductible and maybe more. It also allows you to customize the actual coverage limit. And in some cases, those plans can go up to $500,000 or more. And I'm not sure what the annual limit is, but again, be very easy to, the four names that I just gave you, it'd be very easy to find out what's available.
Right. And Stan taught me this, like, I don't know, a few of these webinars ago, where the medical component of it is typically it's the trip costs and the trip cancellation that is the highest liability risk for the insurance carrier. And so, you look at insuring very low amounts of the trip, the medical aspect of it is actually very affordable. I booked a
Yes.
trip. I booked a trip for my mom, and it was my 87-year-old mom, my husband, myself, and my son. And I looked at insuring the entire cost of the trip and then everybody's medical, and it blew my mind. And then I was like, well, so much of this is refundable, and I put, a much more manageable amount with that. And I got to say, like it made an extreme difference, but the medical coverage was exactly the same. So it's that trip cancellation cost that's the biggest hit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
yeah, that's a great point. Trip cancellation, I think, again, generally speaking, you can think about it as sort of 5% to 10 to 12% of your trip costs. And that would sort of get you to the rough premium of what the insurance would cost you. Um, but if you don't need trip cancellation, you just want those post-departure benefits, meaning the emergency medical, baggage loss, and the stuff that would cover you on the ground after you've left. You can actually go to a comparison site like travelinsurance.com, enter 0 trip costs into the quote form, and I think you would be surprised at how affordable these plans are that give you the post-departure benefits. So all of those things we just talked about. It's much less. And the again, the key here is it's typically not going to have a pre-existing condition waiver.
Hmm.
That coverage is not going to be available because you're not insuring on 100% of your trip costs. And you won't, well, if you don't need the trip cancellation piece, you won't be interested in the cancel for any reason piece either. So it's really just the consideration beyond the pre-existing condition waiver.
Yeah.
Joanne wonders how to find legitimate reviews of each company has handled claims. For example, I made a claim which was eventually paid in full, but I waited 4 months while the company repeatedly asked the same documents, which I'd already submitted, along with other mistakes. I can say that in my personal experience and in terms of the feedback we get from travelers, TravelX is the insurance provider that we've received the best feedback about. I had to file my own claim a year and a half ago and found the process to be quite easy and sent everything in once and it was paid within a couple of weeks. Stan, can you talk about how you choose and rate
Yeah.
the providers on your website?
Yeah, in fact, we on our site, you can actually see the ratings, and so when we ask a customer to rate their experience, we also ask permission to contact them again post when they return from their trip, and at that point, we ask them about claims experiences or if they've made a claim. And so in our reviews, you can filter for reviews that had claims. And we give you the some of the ugly truths there. Not all claims processes are created equally. I would say that Travelex does have a great reputation. Generali has a great reputation. Travel Guard has a great reputation. And the ones that might have been experiencing very fast growth, might have experienced growing pains. I can tell you that we use a feedback loop with our insurance carriers because we become effectively the sort of the punching bag or the first level punching bag. And even though we don't administer the claims on our side and we don't have a sort of say in the claims, we do have a say in how our customers are experiencing a claims process with a partner. So we definitely give that feedback. We can advocate on our customers' behalf, which we do regularly, and when we think that a customer is not being well taken care of, we'll make sure that our partner knows that. And I think that when I look sort of across the spectrum of our partners on travelinsurance.com, the ones that we've received negative feedback through our customers, we know that they've taken action in some cases in hiring in some cases, many additional claims agents to service our customers. And so but I will say this, the starting point for all of these carriers, again, the carriers that we work with, they're the most recognizable names. Their starting point is how do we pay this claim? And sometimes it does require the right information. And I think asking for the same information multiple times is absolutely wrong. But there are occasions where a customer believes they've given all the information that they need to give, and that may not check all the boxes. It's a little bit of a detailed process, but once you get it, once they have it, there is I mean, they're not looking for reasons to say no. They just need the backup to say yes.
Well, we've gone just a few minutes over our hour. Wendy, were there any last questions you saw that you think we should make sure to cover?
Well, I did see one. Now, where was it? I thought it would be good for Sherry to cover it. It was about okay, Nancy asked it. She says, a friend told me that it's up to the doctor in a Paris hospital to decide if I am bad enough to need to fly home to my own doctor. Is this true? Can I just say I want to fly back to Connecticut, my Connecticut doctor, or are there parameters? Who calls the shot?
Right. So that's the difference. That's the medical necessity, and that's the clause that's in travel insurance. So with MedJet, it doesn't matter if the doctor says that, you need to. It's whether you want to or not. If you are hospitalized, if you require continued hospitalization, and you simply prefer to have that done, to be transferred to your hospital in Connecticut because you want to be with your own doctor, you want your family around as patient advocates. I'm a huge believer in having your family there as a patient advocate. And that's what we do. With MedJet, the choice is yours, whether you move to the hospital at home. With travel insurance, it is up to the doctor or the team that's dealing with those doctors to determine whether it's medically necessary to move you. So,
And
Have
Sherry,
you?
I just wanted to clarify, the doctor who's currently treating you somewhere abroad has to confirm that you're medically stable to travel. Does it come up often that someone wishes to go home and the doctor says, no, you're not ready
Right. I
to?
mean, yeah, so many times people have, like we have a lot of motorcycle riders, right? They have an accident. Um, they're all banged up, but they're in the hospital, and because they have like embolisms, you just don't want, these are flying ICUs, but there's zero surgical capacity on the planes. So if the person is in the hospital and they're in the ER still and in the ICU, and they're still watching them because at any moment they may need to be rushed to surgery for continued, what I would call like triage or continued stabilization, then that's a problem. We can't in good conscience take that person out of a hospital that may need surgery any moment now and put them in a, in a jet at altitude and hope that they make it. So the doctor, we get a medical report. It is not the doctor that determines whether you're allowed to go home, whether but that doctor, and then the one on our side, they're going to go through those medical records and make sure that the patient's not going to crash, you
Mhm.
know, or require surgery on the way home. So that.
There's a sort of related question from Michael here for like let's say that you are in the hospital,
Mhm.
if and you need to use it, are there additional charges? Is there a
No.
single point of contact to help out and make all arrangements?
I
Who
would
are you
suggest
talking to?
going to, yeah, you can go to you can go to our website, medjet.com. We have a testimonial page. And as the head of marketing, I go and I shoot these. And the number one thing that people love about it is they call, they get a human. A lot of times that one human on our transport team is who you're contacting throughout the entire thing. It's very easy, it's very turnkey, and if you're transported, there's zero additional cost. We're not insurance, we're a membership program. If we do a transport, 100% of those $250,000 flights from South Africa recently, we pay that bill. You never see a bill. Did that answer it, or was there like, I feel like that was
No,
a
I think that
two-parter.
definitely answers it. There are still a whole bunch of questions, and I'm not sure whether we want to answer any more or wrap things up. Should we just
You
choose?
want to do you
Yeah.
want to do like a two
Oh,
minute
the speed
lightning
round.
round?
Yeah, if we want to do a speed round, I mean, Stan and Sherry, you all can see what's in the Q&A box, I think. Do you want to just sort
Uh,
of take a look and see if there are any that catch your eye? Some I think have been addressed, but maybe there's still a little bit of confusion, you know?
Mhm.
Um,
Okay. Well, maybe let me just see this. Okay. I see why are travel insurances in the U.S. so extremely expensive compared to their countries, e.g. the EU. I think the quick answer is that travel insurance in the EU tends to be much more about the medical component,
Mhm.
and so it's the medical coverage piece that many uh, people are getting versus the trip cancellation piece. If you were to just look at the medical cost or the medical piece of a travel insurance plan in the US, you might find a little bit more parity.
right.
All right.
Um,
I have a speed answer for Amy Dinning, and I'm going to need Stan's help on it because it is insurance related.
Okay.
A lot of insurance policies that you can purchase have hospital of choice. Now, hospital of choice does not necessarily mean hospital of choice in your home country. So you're still going to have to prove medical necessity. Um, am I correct?
Yeah, so there will still be a medical necessity, and then also the stabilization. Are you medically able to travel? And so there are going to be more, I guess sort of more strings attached,
Right.
but the hospital of choice is tends to be a feature that you'll find in the very high end plans, like the more expensive coverages. And it's not a standard feature of the medical evacuation.
Right. Again, I guess to summarize it, it's not because you want to go home, to your hospital at home. It's you still need to be moved further.
Right. If there's a if you yeah, exactly. If you have the hospital of choice, you will still have a set of doctors, the medical doctor on the travel assistance company side that's arranging for a medical evacuation, and then the doctor in the hospital that you're currently in, and there needs to be an agreement that it can take place. And then once there is that agreement, then you can decide, I want to go here, I want to go here, or I want to, again, you decide.
Um, I think those are probably, oh, Nancy says, that is amazing. Thank you, MedJet. Love that. So, well, if there are any questions that we did not get a chance to answer,
Oh,
oh,
I
yes.
just see
Okay.
Dolores. The four that I mentioned were IMG, Seven Corners, World Trips, and Traywig International.
Those are specifically, was that for
Oh,
the
yeah.
UK?
So the question was the medical insurance providers, the travel medical plans.
Mhm.
All of them also offer trip cancellation, but they also have a separate set of products which are just travel medical.
Great.
Good. Okay. Well, I think there are a few questions left, but I know that if any of you want to ask those questions, you can certainly send them to questions@WendyPerrin.com and we will answer them from there. So, because I don't want to take up Stan's and Sherry's any more of their precious time, but we so appreciate your joining us today. Thank you so much. And Brooke, awesome job to you too.
Oh, my
So,
Yes.
pleasure.
And by the way, Brooke, you have become a travel insurance expert.
She really has.
I know. You should see the number of travel insurance questions she answers for our readers. I mean, all
She's
the
no,
time.
It's
So,
spot on.
complicated. I mean,
yeah,
we live in this world and it's extremely complicated.
yeah, I know. I know. Well, we're all here to try to make things a lot easier for
Yes.
our audiences, right? So, anyway, thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you so much to our Wow Week audience. We're so happy that you were able to join us for this talk and other talks this week. So, the Zoom recordings, we're going to put them in articles, and the links are going to be in our newsletter, as I said before. So, if you don't already receive our newsletter, it's easy to sign up. Just go to WendyPerrin.com, and at the top right, it says get our newsletter. It's free. It's twice a week. It's very informative, and we will have the links to all of these Zoom recordings in that. And as I say, if you have a question that didn't get answered today, we're always at questions@WendyPerrin.com. Thank you so much for joining us for Wow Week 2026. Happy travels, everybody.
Thank
Hi,
Thank you,
you.
Wendy.
always a
Thank you,
pleasure,
Brooke.
Bye.
guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Happy travels.